It's been said that better questions lead us naturally to better answers, and that it's in not knowing that we open the doorway to knowing. I'm Scott Lennox, and you're listening to The Beautiful Question, a consideration of things that truly matter in a complex world. We both know that our seeming separation from one another is nothing more than an illusion of thought and habit. And yet how often does that exist to our own peril, and the peril or dismissal of others? This week, we look at the nature of our true interconnectedness, and what happens when we intentionally engage with that awareness in the front of our thinking. Join me this week as we consider building life-saving bridges between us. The more I investigate and ponder the nature of human relationships, especially in light of accelerating global change and population density, the more I find myself asking some of the same questions. What things keep us from really hearing, knowing, and honoring one another? What keeps us from truly connecting and collaborating? And what would build soulful and effective bridges between us? Bridges that serve the greater good. Years ago, while working as a counselor at a local psychiatric hospital, I was challenged by one of the staff physicians. A brilliant psychiatrist from Pakistan, she's a practicing Muslim. I had heard for years about her regular pilgrimages to the holy city of Mecca during the time of Eid al-Fitr, the breaking of the fast that marks the end of Ramadan. When she approached me in the hallway, her fists were against her hips, and there was a defiant look in her eyes. More than a foot shorter than I am, she looked up at me and said, "Someone told me that you can call the Adhan. That's impossible." The Adhan is the Muslim call to prayer that's repeated 5 times a day throughout the Islamic world. As a Christian, I learned it many years ago from a close friend in an effort to better understand him and to have real and meaningful conversations with those who practice Islam. My goal wasn't conversion in either direction, but bridge building between us and between our differences and noticing our similarities. In the face of the doctor's challenge, I invited her to join me in the hospital's gymnasium, where we could be alone and the loudness of my voice would not disturb either patients or staff. She agreed, and once we were inside the gym, I locked the door and turned toward the middle of the room. Positioning herself about 10 feet in front of me, the doctor said, "Go ahead. This I must see and hear to believe." As I'd been shown, I placed my open hands beside my ears, closed my eyes, and loudly called the Adhan as though I wanted people in a village miles away to hear me. When I finished, I opened my eyes, and she was standing much closer, looking up at me with tears streaming down her face. "Impossible," she said. "You just heard me," I told her. "But you're a Christian," she insisted. "I am," I said, "and you're a Muslim. But where is it written that we're supposed to remain ignorant about one another and about our religions? After all, how many gods are there? How many human families are there?" "One," I said. "So in light of that, shouldn't we at least be talking and learning to honor each other?" Looking thoroughly bewildered as she wiped her tears away, she said, very quietly, "Yes." When she walked out, she turned back again, shaking her head as she took one last look at me. For years after that, she would smile and shake her head again every time she saw me. Now, more than ever, I knew the truth of what I told her that day in the gym. Regardless of how many walls or fences or barriers we erect, regardless of how often we try and turn a so-called blind eye or pretend not to recognize it, there are no people on this planet who are not part of the singular human family. Ours is not an I planet, but a we planet. There's no one here but us. This doesn't simply apply to religious or national differences. A couple of days ago, I was sharing with a friend about a friend of mine who died of AIDS not too long after that plague first arrived. An amazingly social person, it was tragically ironic to me that as he lay dying, none of the nurses or techs who were charged with caring for him would touch him. Out of lack of knowledge, they were afraid of him. And so, along with facing his fear, he was forced to endure a yawning sense of isolation and separation, all because of human ignorance. I also think of the countless combat veterans and of men and women and children who have survived trauma, yet remain silent and isolated, telling themselves that no one will understand, or the multitude who carry an abiding sense of loneliness, believing that they don't fit in, or that they'll never, quote-unquote, find their tribe. In how many cases, many of them equally tragic, are we unnecessarily separated from one another out of ignorance or refusal to acknowledge and understand and honor one another? And as the world continues to change, can we really afford to continue thinking and behaving in that way? Could we ever really afford it? We both know the answers. During my most recent trip to New Mexico, I engaged with a number of soulful and gifted people who are actively exploring and discussing some of life's deeper questions, including the matter of our dynamic interrelationships. In unrelated conversations, each a day apart, I was told almost identical statements. Two different men told me the same thing. The first said, "I know that it's time for me to sing in my own voice. I need to do what I was born to do." The second, and it surprised me, said, "I know it's time for me to speak in my own authentic voice and do what I was born to do." As you can imagine, I was deeply moved to hear those two parallel phrases pouring out of people who had never met. As they continued speaking, each of them acknowledged a growing desire to live with a sense of purpose and to become more engaged in meaningful ways with the people around them and with people across the globe. Each of them has known compelling grief and powerful suffering, yet each is listening to the stronger force that is always alive within them, the light of their shared humanity. No sooner had I written that last statement when Javier, one of the servers in the restaurant where I was sitting, came to my table, touched his heart with his fingertips, and then touched mine as he said, "From my heart to yours, namaste." Standing up to embrace him, I was aware that our interaction was neither singular nor unusual. Recognizing and blessing one another is a central part of what it means to be human and intentionally and necessarily connected to one another. Once again, this week's beautiful questions are simple, but profound in their potential impact. 1. What must we do, each of us, to allow the fullness of our humanity to see and honor the fullness and value in everyone else? Again, what must we do, each of us, to allow the fullness of our humanity to see and honor the fullness and value in everyone else? 2. What can we do where we are to make that kind of human exchange an increasingly normal everyday experience? What can we do right where we are to make equanimity an increasingly normal experience? And 3, if we each speak in our own authentic voice every day, what would that sound like? How would we feel? And how would things change within us and around us? I'll ask it again. If each of us speaks in our own authentic voice more and more every day, what would that sound like? How would we feel as we did it? And how would things change inside us and around us? I thank you for spending time with me in this way, and for considering something that is so vitally important and will become more so. I'm looking forward to hearing what arises in you as you ponder this most essential issue. As I say each week, my light with your light. Thank you again for listening. I continue to be inspired by our collaboration as we work and play together, building better lives and better possibilities for ourselves, for one another, for the world, and for our beautiful planet home. As always, I look forward to your comments and to your feedback. And you can be further inspired by visiting my good friends at Cosmos Journal, including their online newsletter. That's KOS-MOS Journal. Their mission is to inform, inspire, and engage global transformation in harmony with all life. You can easily find them online at cosmosjournal.org. And you can find my free podcasts and guided relaxation audios by searching for The Beautiful Question in Apple Podcasts or SoundCloud or CastBox, or by visiting the podcast page of my website at scottlennox.com. As always, if you find them useful or encouraging, don't hesitate to share them. I'm Scott Lennox, and this has been The Beautiful Question. The Beautiful Question is a One Light production, written, recorded, and produced by Scott Lennox at Heart Rock Studios in Fort Worth, Texas, as a way of paying forward to life, being fully present, and becoming better engaged with things that truly matter in a complex world.